Kia ora, Tokyo. It's so wonderful to be here, it really is, and thank you so much, Selenium, for inviting me here. Maybe you don't know me, my name is Kim Nepata, and what I thought is I would take you on a journey today about blockchain. So a few things about me. Part of the testing that I've been involved with in the past is fintech, so insurance, GIS, trade exchange platforms, so it was precious metal, blockchain, and I currently work as a business analyst for a fresh food production and delivery company in Brisbane, which is quite unusual because it's quite a large company owned by one single man, which is amazing. So I thought I'd go through some things that I find I'm passionate about, and one of them particularly is professional growth. And this picture is from lynda.com, which I've used a couple of times. And I think it's really important as a tester to take responsibility for your own professional development. This is an interesting one. Filter out the naysayers. Why would I have to put that as something that's important to me? Probably because of where I come from. So I come from New Zealand. I come from a Maori background. I moved to Australia. When I grew up though, my family, higher education was not something encouraged. Good work ethic was though. I moved from New Zealand to Australia and I was introduced to tech much later in life, possibly because of economic reasons and also opportunity as well. I came from the business side, so I didn't come from a technical side. The point I'm trying to make with this is that regardless of your circumstances, if you've found your passion, don't let anybody tell you otherwise not to do it. I've not really actually worked with a lot of testers, which is interesting, right? I was always being generally the single testing resource within a development team, so I work quite closely with developers. These are my girls. That's Primrose and Bluebell. I live in Brisbane with my partner, Mike, who happens to be a developer. And this picture was taken. Why I showed this, because it's quite interesting. I was trying to whiteboard blockchain and learn it, and I was doing it in front of the girls, and they fell asleep. So I'm really hoping you guys don't. Okay, so let's go on the trail together. One of the things that that I thought was interesting was information. So having to face and manage fears that I possibly might not have, that I had was the potential blocker, because I thought maybe I could never understand this information. Using correct terminology is essential, the language. So let's do a walkthrough where we'll explain the terminology simply. Testing. How do you do that? What kind is normal? What's usual? What about outside of the box? What kind of testing applies to blockchain? So, remove fears to gain information freedom. Okay, one of the biggest obstacles I faced was the steep learning curve I had in front of me. It was about information, language testing, so how was I going to overcome that fear of failing, of not getting it right? The way I did that, of my fears and self-doubts, was to try and make things simple. So blockchain, when you talk to people, especially experts, it sounds so complicated, right? And sometimes it's way above people's heads. Now, don't misunderstand me, it is complicated, and there's mathematical equations and that are just unbelievable, but what I thought would be interesting is to go through it and just some basic concepts and try and break it down to simple things. And I really wanted to share with you today all of this so that you could start your own journey learning blockchain. Now, when I talk about blockchain, I'm probably going to refer to cryptocurrency more because that's what I was involved in. Okay, so listening. One of the best ways to learn is listening within the team. So what I mean by that is you don't have your headphones on, you're listening to what the developers are talking about, you're asking the questions. When they were building that framework for the cryptocurrency and the wallet, I was actually working on another project. So I was using Jira cards to kind of test things, and I didn't understand what I was testing. So the last thing you want to do is to be sideswiped by not knowing your product. So I think it's really important that you work closely with your developers. Ask questions. Ask lots of questions. Google everything, right? So let's face it, developers have already done all the hard work for you, right? So they've done the research, they're cutting the code, they know this stuff. They might give you URLs, they might give you different sites to look at. So have those conversations with them. So I suppose that's all about building really good kind of working relationships within the team. The other thing is learn. Learn everything. Own your professional development. Don't become one of those people that, is just happy with being mediocre. Never stop learning. Look, funny story I wanted to relate, which is quite interesting. I applied for a position as a mobile tester, and they sent me a reply basically saying that I wasn't specialised enough, I was a generalist. Now, a generalist is someone you want in your team, someone who's curious, who looks for things, who learns, who drives their learning, and has a broad knowledge. They make good team members. So when I think about it now, I think it was a good thing I didn't get the job, because I ended up doing blockchain. This guy, I thought he was I loved this thing. When he made that quote, you don't learn to walk by following rules. You learn by doing and by falling over. What was happening at the time, he was trying to build Virgin Records, and he was highlighting one of the biggest obstacles is being scared of falling over. And following the rules doesn't always guarantee that you're going to get it right. Sometimes you've got to approach what you're doing with a bit of flair. Okay, this is rhetorical. Are you falling over? So when I heard that the business was working on using blockchain technology, I did the first thing that anybody does, right? What do? You Google it. And you know how much came back? And of course, Stack Overflow came later, of course. I guess what I'm trying to say is that just embrace that opportunity to learn and grow. So let's get into the technology itself. Learning the language. Okay, so blockchain and its related tools, it's a large subject, and we don't have a lot of time to cover all of them. So what I thought I'd choose to highlight these 4 points: blockchain, consensus, cryptography, and testnet. Okay, so there's so many uses for blockchain, and as I said, I'm going to kind of concentrate on the cryptocurrency version of it. So what is blockchain? It's a digital ledger that can record transactions where a date-time stamp is attached. Each transaction is a block of verified data that is attached to a chain using cryptography. Okay, so once the transaction has been verified and accepted, it's like it's set in permanent ink, so you can't rub it out or change it. So how do we store these transactions? So like I said, we were talking about cryptocurrency, a wallet. So A wallet's like an account. So if you have a hot wallet, it means it's online. If you have a cold wallet, it's offline. So what would a cold wallet look like? It's like a USB device. One of them is a Ledger Nano S. So it just kind of plugs in, download everything, take it offline. Okay. So earlier I mentioned something about transactions needing to be verified and accepted. So let's move on to more about that functionality. So, what's consensus? It's when a transaction has been verified by using consensus. Consensus is a vote of a set number of nodes. What's a node? It's a computer on a network. Now, there's a lot more behind consensus. And the one that we used when I was working at Kinesis Money was the Stellar Consensus Protocol, which is amazing. And unfortunately, I don't have time to go through all of it. And there are lots of different models, but I thought I'd name a few just to kind of give you a broad idea. And actually, consensus is my favourite subject. So maybe it's a talk for the future. Okay, so proof of work. So it's basically mining, which means most computers wins. Or takes control of the decision, the transaction. And that was devised by Satoshi Nakamoto for use in the Bitcoin blockchain. The next one is proof of stake. So it's like minters staking tokens to bet on which one is valid or which block. So proof of authority. Now this is a kind of a little bit different because it's like having an admin. They control the account and all other nodes receive the truth from them. So it's centralised. Now normally we think about blockchain as being decentralised. The Byzantine fault tolerance. I always think this is pretty cool. So it's kind of described as a bunch of generals that have assigned armies to them and they've surrounded this huge castle, and these generals have to kind of talk to each other and figure out when they're going to attack. And the Stellar Consensus Protocol. So that's derived from BFT, and that's the one that we used when I was working at Kinesis Money. So I'd recommend David Mazzaneris. I'm so sorry if he sees this. Nerves. Anyway, he's a professor of computer science at Stanford University. He's the chief scientist at Stellar Foundation, and he explains it really well in this video taken in 2016 when he was given a talk at Google. So I'll provide the links at the end, and I really recommend watching it because he explains it quite simply and it's fascinating. So what's cryptography? It's a tool used for security of data on the blockchain. So cryptography is when you use a math algorithm to encrypt data so that when it's converted, it's unreadable. So decryption of that data that's been received back, and you use this algorithm again to decrypt the data that has been received back to readable content. So to encrypt and decrypt data requires extra information, and that information is called a key. Sometimes you can just use a single key for both encrypting and decrypting. Other cases, you might require a separate key, separate keys for both transactions. But the main thing is that what it does is it's authentication of what is important. Okay, so that's just giving us a little bit of an idea of a hash. So if you think of the RV19 as like the account, and then when you create that account, it hashes it all together and it adds numbers and letters to it. Hashing proves that this message is intact, and so I'll give you a high level of an example. So a hash is basically a mathematical summary of the message. Oh, hang on. Yep, okay. So what is testnet? It's obviously a test environment. We need somewhere to test all of this, right? Now with testnet, each cryptocurrency has their own testnet. Okay, so with the cryptocurrency, those testnets are not interchangeable, except that you can create a wallet that is user-friendly to X amount of currencies. So, and that's the only way that you can transfer or purchase cryptocurrency. So, testing tools, what are some of them? A faucet. Now, each testnet has this already set up generally. So what it does is just create test cryptocurrency for your chosen environment. Explorer, what it does too is displays the transaction information on the chosen testnet and the ledger. So this is a screenshot of a Stellar testnet and their Explorer. So when you see the transaction that's been taken place, what you can see is a transaction that's been taken place is now displaying a hash, the top one. It's been accepted and added to the block. The next transaction added to the block is noted on the second transaction, second red. But you can see where it's been added straight after the first one, and you can verify this by noting the previous hash record. So you can see that top one, the original hash, previous hash down below, same one. I don't know if anybody knows these guys, Mythbusters, yeah? Big fan of Jamie and Adam. So why I did that is talking about breaking myths. So a lot of people say it's the latest thing, it's just happened. It's been around a while, the technology for blockchain. So remembering what blockchain actually is, it's in its simplest form, it's a way to verify the authenticity of data that at a given point in time, when a hash was created against it. If you then make changes to that data, you would need to have another hash against it to store as a block to the chain. Right? That's what everybody thinks. It's the answer to everything. I just thought this might be funny, this little joke, because basically it's talking about, you know, blockchain, it's the best thing ever, you've got it going, but they don't really know what it is. So it's new, sometimes business say it's new, it will solve everything, but do you know what? Blockchain technology is just a tool or platform like anything else. So what you need to do is pick the right one to solve your problems. Okay, so remembering that blockchain technology is about authenticity of data. So what's it been used in? Property ownership, music ownership, online shopping. Actually, an interesting thing, Walmart in 2017 filed a patent and it's been granted for it for a smart package system. Now this uses blockchain technology and it enables them to track parcels and monitor the contents, the condition of the contents. So how do we go about testing this, right? Okay, so testing was predominantly driven by the UX designer, and I was fortunate enough to work closely with him, which was awesome. The weird thing, though, sometimes about designing a product is that you can sometimes build it and it doesn't actually meet the expectations of who's using it. And what I mean by that is our first prototype was built by our developers and it really was wonderful. It was awesome. But the problem with that, it was built in such a technical way that it was quite difficult to use. And I'd noticed when I was testing it, I was having problems with what I was doing. And that didn't really highlight until we hired this great UX designer. And what we did is we did different types of testing, beta testing, and it highlighted bottlenecks in what we were doing. So this is the wallet that we were building. Okay, so the first hurdle was it's a client-side application. It's not linked to a database. So creating a password here is really just for the user's machine. Oop, that's better. Okay, the way for the team to solve this was to educate the users, take them on the journey, that there was no link, we can't reset your password, and that's the way that the wallet was designed. So we're starting to try and educate our users, and there's a huge shift in their thinking. The next hurdle we had was cryptography and the way that we use security on the wallet. So we originally started with the alpha number combo. I think it's like 56 characters. It is huge. And it's impossible to remember, impossible to type. So the solution was to move to phrase words. So when the user logs into another machine or they clear the cache, then they need to use those seed words to log into their own digital wallet. So what we also did is, because it's so important, right? We can't reset anything here. You lose the seed words, all your money's gone. So what we decided to do to try and educate them is get them to write it down and then test them with the words. So that was a kind of huge shift in getting our users to understand we weren't able to assist them if they lost it. So another way of testing, particularly essential when testing consensus and disaster recovery, is working with developers, so pairing with them. So with consensus, we talked about that you have to assign like a set amount of nodes in different regions, and they all need to agree on a transaction, so you have a set amount. For example, if I had 3 regions, so I had Asia, Europe and America, and each region had 3 nodes. I had them all set to where I needed 4 nodes out of 3 regions to agree for a transaction to be accepted. Testing them would mean creating transactions while taking the regions offline. So it's really classic BVA testing. So disaster recovery testing is like taking 2 regions offline and watching them come back up to ensure that they've maintained the data, and any data that was created during the time of them going down or coming offline was handled gracefully. So the developers used Docker Swarm to be able to do that, take things offline and back up again. Exploratory testing. Be the expert on your product, right? So time box these events, have a goal, use something to map it, have fun, be curious. That's what exploratory testing is about. Automate. So all our developers wrote unit tests, full stop. There was no compromise on that. And I had access to be able to read them and review them, which was awesome. They also created all the API automation tests. I wanted to simplify my testing, so I decided to start using Selenium IDE to create data for me. It was brilliant. I'd verify smoke tests against UAT environment. Now, with this, like I said, I was the single tester in a development team, and the business had decided to not let me pursue that. So what I did is I did it out of work. I did it at home, learnt it, and just used the tools at work. And it meant that I could do things faster. So I left to take up a new position with, like I said, the food company as an agile business analyst. Within within that food company, but I'm still heavily involved with our QA team. We're in the middle of moving from manual testing to automation, which is super cool because it's kind of like a startup that's just blossomed overnight. And also all our front-end devs use Selenium 2 for testing, so it's brilliant. All right, let's see how it works. Now, this is interesting, right? You don't want to see this. Well, I happened to see this 2 days ago. What had happened is I had obviously left Kinesis, knew that it worked, had to recreate it 2 days ago, and I hit that. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me why that was showing. Now, I could see on the wallet it had to do with that drop-down box. But again, when I updated it, when I changed it, when I came at it every different way, still didn't work. So what do you do with that, right? So if I was in Brizzy, what I'd do is I'd time box it, and then if I still hadn't been able to figure out the debugging, I would go to my developers and I would pair with them. But I'm in Tokyo, right? Who am I going to pair with? Who do you think? So yes, so Dave very nicely helped me with this, which was awesome. And you know what the interesting thing was? It was the thing he talked about in the morning. There was that bit where he said about saving it, and it was like a 3 stages or multi-stage. I'd forgotten it. And that's why I was getting that error. So once we'd figured that out, it was green all the way, which was brilliant. So I suppose the point I'm trying to make with this is when you're debugging something, time box it. Don't waste your resource. And then go to the developer or developers that have worked on it and pair with them, because that's an exchange of knowledge and it's a good way to grow. Okay, so what I might do now is actually show you it running. I'm just going to go over to this. Okay. Maybe it doesn't want to. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Won't be a minute. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Oh, yeah, you got it. Thanks for being so patient. Oh. Okay, technical difficulties. We've lost it, and I'm so sorry about that. But what I can do is I will make available my blog, and then I'll do a video or something and attach it to it, so you'll be able to see it. But it is super cool with that, and that tool is just absolutely wonderful. So the one thing that I wanted everybody to take away from the IDE, and Selenium IDE, is it's a great tool for somebody like me who wants to be able to automate things, but I don't have the time to invest to learn all the high coding or all of those sort of things. So offer this tool to your BAs. It's great for the UAT testing. Offer it to any of the manual testers. They could really do with the hand on that, the help on that. So I've got a couple more links on there so that you're able to investigate a bit further and that you'll be able to make your own blockchain. And a bit more on learning more. I'd certainly recommend reading the white paper. The white paper is amazing. It will give you more in-depth background about it. Okay. And that is me. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. Are there any questions at all?
Yeah, any question is welcome. In Japanese or in English?
No? Oh, look, you can come talk to me afterwards. I love chatting with anybody, so please, yeah, catch up with me. I'd really appreciate it. And thank you so much. You've all been wonderful and patient. I really appreciate that. Domo arigatou gozaimasu.